93 WIBC. It is Terri Stacy. Well, some say published writers have the very best job in the world because they get to write for a living. They get to make money writing, and they can write all day long, and that's their job. But writers also tell you that they don't know when to turn it off. And so they're even writing when they're not writing. And so there are good and there are bad things about being a writer, just like every other job in the world. But this week, the chicksontheright.com writers have been in our building. I've told you before that the Chicks and I, we share an office. So these two beautiful ladies have been in our building for about a week, and it's been fun having them. It's like having Chicks time two. So now we've got four. And you guys, actually, I'll ask you, Kimber, who is one of our writers from right here in Central Indiana. Are you called Chicklets?
Yeah. They call us the Chicklets now.
They call you Chicklets
we
now.
are the Chicklets.
You are the Chicklets. As I mentioned, Kimber is from right here in Central Indiana. Hannah is also with us, and she is from Florida. Hello, Hannah.
Hi.
You guys are so cool. Give me your ages. I know you're not yet 30, correct, Kimber?
Correct. I am 26.
You are 26. Okay, and then Hannah?
I'm 24.
So, and you're the baby.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
kind of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So is this really kind of a dream come true for you to have an opportunity to write for a conservative online website? Is it for you, Hannah?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I was in school, I went to a liberal arts college and I majored in journalism and political science. And one of the things they always told us in journalism, I was always so interested in opinion writing. And they were like, you know, Hannah, that's great that you like that, but you are never going to be able to do that in the real world.
And make a living at it,
no,
right?
Yeah, they said that would never happen. They're like, unless you work for, like, they're like, you have to start at the bottom and do all the, like, and I did do crap jobs.
Yeah.
But they were like, you really need to establish yourself as a writer first, doing straight reporting, that kind of stuff. And so they really snubbed it. And actually,
and that wasn't that long ago.
No.
We're talking about this is in this day and age.
Yeah, I graduated 2 years ago, so this is really recent.
Yeah. And so is it rare? Was it rare for you as a female to have this kind of this career in mind, what you wanted to do for a living when we talk about conservative?
I think so, yeah, because everybody I was associated with at school, everyone going to journalism, they're like, oh my gosh, my dream is to work for the New York Times and to work for the Washington Post. And I was never interested in that. And it was really interesting because even though I only graduated 2 years ago, they really, really crap on blogging in school. They don't even talk about it. They didn't talk about social media. It's like they're still stuck like 10 years ago, how things were 10 years ago. So me saying, oh my gosh, I want to be a blogger, they're like, yeah, okay, that's never going to happen. That's not a real thing.
Okay. And so for Kimber, for you,
Sure.
What was your goal? What were you thinking as you were considering what you were going to do to make a living as you were growing up?
Right.
Was this where you are right now? Is it a dream come true?
It is absolutely a dream come true, but it wasn't the dream. I sort of ended up here unexpectedly. I do have an undergraduate degree in English, so I thought I wanted to be a writer. I have 2 master's degrees, which have absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing now. And I haven't always been conservative. So
That's an interesting part of her story.
Right. So all
Or her family, or her entire family.
Right. Or all of my friends. So all through college, I was actually I was very liberal. And throughout grad school, I started sort of asking questions and realizing that I wasn't satisfied with the answers I was getting. Which, ended up bringing me to the Chicks. It's all a very interesting story. But yeah, I would have never expected to end up here.
Yeah. How did you know you were conservative? So how did you know?
It was a lot of very small steps. I think that especially I went to a very large liberal arts university. I realized that I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted, and that a lot of the talking points that I was really good at repeating weren't really clicking for me anymore. I actually did not grow up in this country. I grew up in Mexico. I moved, my whole family moved to this country to make a better life for ourselves and to make a better opportunity for ourselves. And I realized that a lot of that was working for what you had. And a lot of the more liberal talking points didn't really mesh with that, didn't mesh with working for what you have and standing up for who you are. A lot of them were kind of just waiting for things to happen to you, and that's not who I am.
Hannah, how did you know that you were a conservative?
Well, my parents, I grew up in a conservative household. They weren't like super political, but it was always kind of just the basics of personal responsibility. My dad's a business owner. My mom, I have a disabled sister. My mom works really hard to take care of her. So I saw that growing up. But when I actually went to college, there was so much, I don't know, there was so many liberal teachers and stuff, and I didn't really know exactly what, it was just certain...
No, it's okay. I mean, maybe it's hard to describe.
No, yeah, like I remember distinctly I had an English class. It was like Composition 1, and they would get really political in it, and it was really weird because it was Composition 1. And I saw myself asking myself questions like, I don't agree with what they're saying, but I couldn't figure out why.
Okay.
And I couldn't defend my points of view, and it really bothered me because I knew they were wrong, but I couldn't be like, you're wrong. You just are. So I went home, I bought a bunch of books, I started reading them like crazy, and as I started getting more political, my family did, and now we're just one big political family.
I think that's pretty cool. So millennials, which you both are, Kimber, are you a minority? Republicans,
I would say
50-50?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I would say that the vast majority of them are incredibly liberal.
Yeah.
I think that it's just kind of the trendy thing to be right now.
That's what I wanted to get to. Is
yeah.
it just a trendy thing?
I think it's just the trendy thing. I think that wearing your, feel the burn shirt and talking about social justice and not really understanding what you're... I don't want to not give them credit because I do feel that a lot of millennials are very passionate about their political beliefs, but I don't think that they've taken the time to question them or to question why they're going in this direction. And becoming a conservative, I realize, I was right there with them. I said all of the same things. I believed all of the same things. And it wasn't until I really took time to question why I was saying those things and whether or not I actually believed them that I realized that I wasn't part of that group.
Yeah.
And it's actually been very difficult. It's been rather isolating. I'm 26 years old. I am female. I'm half Hispanic. I have 2 master's degrees. I don't really know anyone in my circle of friends anymore that can fill those boxes. And a lot of people have chosen to kind of, step away from me. In this day and age, being a conservative, especially being a conservative woman, is difficult. And it's difficult because people don't want to give you the time of day to listen to what that actually means.
Yeah. Do you two ever disagree, Hannah?
We're very different people,
yeah.
And we always laugh because our backgrounds are so different. But there's really nothing that we completely disagree on, or if anything, we hash stuff out. And I'll be like, oh, you know what? That's a good point. That's kind of what I think. If I'm unsure on something, I'll run it by her and hear her take, and we usually bounce off each other. But there's really nothing that we really...
You go really head to head with when it comes with issues. All right, don't go anywhere. Here's what I need you to do. Sit tight because we need to take a quick break. More with the Chicklets, the two that write for Chicks on the Right, when we come back after this on 93 WIBC. Welcome back to the first day on 93 WIBC. Terri Stacy with you. Also in studio, if you're just joining us, we have Hannah here. Hannah is from Florida, and also Kimber from Central Indiana, and they write for chicksontheright.com, one of your favorite websites. Ladies, thank you for sticking around. They have been in the building with us this week working with Mock and Daisy. So, ladies, I share an office with Mock and Daisy, and I hear the calls that come in, and I see the emails that they receive. And a lot of it is pretty mean, vicious attacks on Mock and Daisy. For you guys, have you had to become thick-skinned? Do you receive that kind of attention as well? Kimber, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think that we are not quite as visible on the site as of yet than Mock and Daisy are. So we don't get quite the same level of viciousness. We do get called out, surprisingly, on being young and naive often. I actually think that our opinions are fairly informed. I think that we read a lot. We really stay on top of things. And I think at times it's actually surprising that conservatives aren't more excited to see younger people on the same team. I really feel like the majority of conservatives are older than we are. And I think it should be an exciting thing that, a younger generation wants to take up these values. And they say that too. However, we do get attacked for being young, which I think is surprising and, unfortunate.
And Hannah, what do you, from where you sit and the stories that you write and share on Chicks on the Right, do you get that kind of negative attention that Mock and Daisy do?
Not to the same level as them because of the visibility, but the one thing, like Kimber was saying, is the remarks from that surprise me the most are the ones that come from other conservatives, not necessarily liberal trolls. The ones that they'll just be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so young. Like, what are you doing? Ever since you started writing for Chicks on the Right, like things are going downhill. You don't know what you're talking about." And
I don't know how you can overcome that because you are who you are. Right. You can't change how old you are.
And one thing that I think older conservatives, some of them aren't exactly getting on board with is we talk a lot about culture, cultural rot, and they're like, it's so intertwined with politics, and that's one thing that we really like to write about, and that's one thing that they get really irritated about. But it's just so important, and I think that's one thing that conservatives really need to unite on, is understanding that cultural rot is directly connected to everything that are going on in politics.
I want to ask you what you have learned becoming as you have this journey of becoming who you are today. I wonder what you have learned in being a writer for a conservative website.
Really,
or maybe even what you have learned about yourself.
It's solidified my core values. It's kind of made me realize that a lot of the exterior stuff doesn't really matter so much as to what your values are unshakable. And if other people want to judge them, if everything else that people say, if they say something about your looks, they'll say whatever they want to match their narrative. But as long as you know who you are, you're fine.
For you, Kimber?
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself in writing?
I definitely have to second that. I just feel like it has really solidified the fact that I do truly believe this and that I do feel that I'm writing for a cause. I would like to see more millennials really stop to think about what it is they believe and what it is they stand for, and what this country means to them. I think it's really popular right now to rip on America. And as I mentioned, I moved to this country as a teenager, and I could not be more grateful for that. And so every day I wake up and I know that I'm writing for a cause. It feels good. It feels good. Even though it has definitely burned some bridges in my life, I know that I stand by what I believe in.
Yeah, we just love America.
Yeah. God bless America. Absolutely. And I do think that's interesting, and I don't know if you want to talk about that for a minute, but it has burned bridges. And for you too, Hannah, I bet. We haven't talked about it as much with I have not talked about it as much with you about those bridges that may have been burned. I know that, Kimber, you were very open about it and what it has done to relationships, even within your family.
Right.
And so for Hannah, for you too, you're okay, right? You haven't had too much trouble with burnt bridges.
Family-wise, I've been fine, but I did have a really, really difficult time right before I graduated from school. People knew that I was one of the only, I was the only conservative writer for, I'll just say it was the Flagler College Gargoyle. And they tolerated me for a while. And towards the end, that's when the Ferguson riots were happening. They were starting to talk about putting in like the gender neutral bathrooms. So I wrote some opinion pieces on them, and people just decided that was the last straw, and they went after me. And it was really hard because a lot of the professors that I became close to, that we had an understanding that we just disagreed politically, and that was okay. They completely cut me off. I had one professor who, during my senior seminar, actually just asked me straight out why I was a racist.
Wow.
And it was just horrible. And long story short, my dad actually had to end up writing a letter to the president of the college because there was rumors that there was going to be a walkout when I graduated.
Wow.
So I have no connections to my school anymore, which is really sad.
It is really sad. It is. Kimber, anything you want to add to that? I didn't know how much you wanted to talk about
Sure,
this. Or
absolutely. And I mean, I think although I do have ideological differences with a lot of my family members, I do really appreciate the fact that they have stood by me. One thing that my mother said once, who is liberal, that really stuck with me is she said that while she has different opinions than I do, she did raise me to be a strong woman who stands by what she believes in. And so even though we believe in different things, she's incredibly proud of me. So, I'm incredibly appreciative of that. I've realized that a few friends or people who I thought were my friends really have no interest in talking about what I actually believe. They hear that I'm conservative. That comes with a whole set of ideas for them. They have no interest in talking through the issues and talking about what I actually think about each one of them. They're just convinced that they know who I am, which is unfortunate because once that idea starts in their mind, they're not really willing to see past it. They're not really willing to acknowledge the fact that we've known each other for years and that they know my heart. They're like, well, you're a conservative and I know what that means. So that's been tough. It's been really tough because you realize that there's very little you can say to someone who has already made up in their head that they want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's true. Nothing you can do to change it. You guys, I tell you, I wanted to bring you in because I wanted people to hear your voices because we have a lot of people here locally that listen and in central Indiana that do go to chicksontheright.com. And I wanted them to hear your voices as two writers. You are so intelligent and you really do have it all together. You really do.
Thank you.
You're two very cool young ladies. I wanted people to hear your voices, to know that, yes, you are intelligent. You have a lot to bring to the table. You have a lot to offer. I'm glad we had a chance to talk and meet both of you because you're pretty awesome. So thank you for coming in. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
It's a great pleasure to meet you. Watch what they're doing. And again, chicksontheright.com. Kimber and Hannah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.